Okay, we're here continuing our series of socially distant studio visits in Hallwalls virtual realm. And today we're talking with Jillian McDonald, artist in Brooklyn, New York, who showed at Hallwalls back in 2010. Doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was. And my first question, Jillian, is how are you?
Well, that's such a complicated question. I'm good in some ways. I'm very calm, trying to remain calm, but I'm in one of the eyes of the storm. So it's very scary. I'm trying to just take one day at a time and not think about it too much.
Yeah,
And
and I don't,
not read too much news.
yeah, and I apologize in advance if I make you think about it more, but
Yeah.
uh, we're obviously interested and concerned because we're in New York State and we all have lots of friends in New York City, and that is kind of the epicenter of action at the moment. What does it feel like on the ground? Are you going out much? Are you going around the block? I noticed your grocery store in the corner closed.
Mm, yeah, everything's kind of closed. I'm not going out much. I am very thankful to have moved 2 years ago to a much bigger apartment than I lived in for my most of my years here in New York. So I have a yard, and I'm extremely thankful for that. I go out into the yard every day, no matter what the weather is. And I can see the sky and I can hear the birds and cats that come to poop in my yard. I'm actually, for once, almost thankful for them. I'm going out for little runs occasionally, but they're very anxiety producing. In my neighborhood, people are not necessarily keeping 6 feet apart.
Mhm.
Um, I think they are now. The last time I went out a couple days ago, people were, and people were actually wearing masks. I would say like maybe a third of people are wearing masks now, which gave me a little bit of confidence, made me feel a little more secure. But yeah, I'm actually really not going out.
The mask thing does not give me confidence. The mask thing kind of wigs me out a little. I saw someone driving a car the other day wearing a mask,
Yeah.
and I thought, you're driving a car. You're by
Yeah.
yourself in your car, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why it gives me confidence. I actually telemedicined with my doctor, not because I was sick, just a kind of regular checkup. And who knows when we're going to have those again. So I went with it. But she was saying that people, if you wear a mask, you give people a signal that they should be careful of you. And for me, that just kind of worked. I just felt like people were giving me more space. Before that, I would actually, I walk a block and a half, no, maybe 2.5 blocks to get to a little park where I can run around, kind of like mini laps with trees. It's like relatively nice. But even in that 2.5 blocks, I would have to cross the street a number of times to avoid people. So that's happening less if I wear the mask, I noticed.
I had to do a visit with my doctor via video as well, and he looked really, really tired.
Yeah.
I felt
Oh my
very bad
God.
for him.
I couldn't
I
imagine.
should point out to people, let's see if I can share my screen here a little, that my background is a painting of yours called The Thaw. Did I share it successfully?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I don't know, I think I was sort of thinking I'm waiting for all of this suspended animation to thaw, but also the figures in the piece, they have a nice, they're obeying social distancing rules really
That's
well.
true.
And
They are.
I think that seemed apropos. Now, I wanted to ask you actually about atmosphere. And I don't want you to think that whenever I think of you, I think of horror tropes, because I don't, but it's something we share in common as fans, and you as an artist have worked uh, in a lot of exploration of those tropes. But I really want to talk about atmosphere because in the piece behind me, for example, is not necessarily, a horror scene, but it's atmospheric. And in your video work and in a lot of your photography, certainly in the horror genre as well, but in other work, atmosphere seems to be something that always bubbles up. Even in that deep fake video where you and Nick Offerman are sipping brandy in front of a fire. I mean, that is all about extended atmosphere, a sense
Hmm.
of atmosphere. And I wondered if, you know, what is the atmosphere like in New York? I mean, is it just like a really quiet Sunday afternoon, or has it tipped over into feeling kind of weird and creepy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going out enough to really answer that. Most of the scenes I see of New York, I see on, the news and online. But I mean, I can tell you my block is usually once the weather gets nice, which it is right now, it's quite warm in New York, probably in Buffalo even. There's usually people out with music out on the street. There's a lot of families, there's a lot of young people, and folks are, enjoying themselves. And they are, there's a church a few blocks down that it's a Seventh-day Adventist church, and they are singing from Friday night until Saturday night, and it's loud, and I hear it through my backyard, and I've always really enjoyed it. Although a week ago I posted on Facebook that I was annoyed that they were still going, because it was, we were not supposed to be gathering at all, and they were clearly gathering, but the sounds are gone. And to me, that's like a really kind of haunted thing that's happening. The only things I hear outside now are birds and an occasional train. I'm pretty close to the J train, which is an elevated subway line that runs maybe like the equivalent of like a block and a half away from me. And I don't hear that very much. I hear it occasionally. I hear a lot of ambulances, and a lot of ambulances at the same time, kind of all day, all night. So the atmosphere feels like kind of pregnant with silence. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that paints a very vivid picture, actually.
Yeah, and the people are not outside on their stoops like they normally are. You'll see like a couple of young guys with their dogs normally, like kind of hanging out, chatting for hours. And you'll see like people of all ages stopping on the street and having a conversation. And obviously no one's doing that anymore. So it's heavy. I think that the atmosphere is really heavy.
Now, you're a professor at Pace University, and I presume you're continuing to teach remotely as well?
Actually, I'm on sabbatical this year,
Oh, wow.
which is both good and bad. I mean, it's the weirdest sabbatical. I'm supposed to be like full on research mode. I had all kinds of travel plans. To most of my work I make, as you know, John, on site. So I usually go to remote landscapes and film and work with people in that community to make work, but I can't do that right now. So yeah, I'm not teaching online, but I'm also not traveling anywhere.
Where would you be right now otherwise?
I would be in Newfoundland on Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really a shame. How long is sabbatical?
So my sabbatical's for a year.
A year from now?
Yeah, so it started January, the end of January, and it's going till next January.
Okay, so you'll get some travel time in.
I hope so. Who knows? Who knows what the world holds for us?
Don't say it like that. I wanted to share another picture. I wanted to go back to February 24th, and you shared this picture on Facebook of,
wow.
a talk you gave about, I think you said it was about performance at NYU, and then you had some of the students get into kind of an impromptu zombie performance on stage. And I wanted to share one because you seemed absolutely delighted by it, and it seems like one of the last moments before all this sort of came crashing down, where you could be in this sort of joyous moment with a dense crowd of people. And maybe you want to chat about that moment a little.
Yeah,
You sure look happy.
I was totally happy. It was so much fun. Gosh, I was invited to give 3 lectures actually at NYU, and they were the same lecture, one after the other, over a couple days. It's for the entire Tisch arts, all the arts, performing arts, and music and visual arts, etc. And so part of it, the lecture series is about process. So, I worked really closely with one of the organizers to kind of like tailor the talk to not just be like your standard artist talk, but to get them to think about like failure when it happens in your work, and to think about like how opportunities make your work shift. So I actually focused on various opportunities in my life that took me in a radically different direction that I wasn't expecting. And one was discovering zombies. So, and I talked about George Romero, his idea of not really telling people how to act as zombies, but let them really do their own thing. So they'll all inhabit like these different human personas and not be stiffly doing it. So we did a mini workshop during the talk, and 10 students jumped up on stage with me, and they were all over each other, and everyone was laughing, and look how many people are sitting close together. I mean, that picture makes me cringe right now, because we had 200 people in the room for each lecture. Yeah. It was so much fun. I mean, it was really fun to work with them. They were a really super boisterous, excited crowd. And we did a little undead performance, and, a few days later, we weren't going anywhere.
Well, and I guess my question was, how much do you miss something like that? Which I imagine some of your classes are like that, boisterous and enthusiastic. And even though you're on sabbatical, I mean, you would otherwise be teaching if you weren't. I mean, how much do you miss that reality with the students?
I miss it a lot. I mean, it's interesting. I think, there's this kind of trope of artists really liking to be alone, and that's absolutely true. You need to be alone. I think probably most artists need to be alone a lot to think and to really tap into, their creative ideas. And I certainly am one of those also. But I don't know, I have another side where I really like to be around people, and I really like to work with people, whether it's teaching or, most of my work, I'm in some situation where I'm making a film and there's people involved and we're like really kind of collaborating on it. It's not necessarily me directing them. It's more like, hey, how can we make this work together? And I really like that one-on-one and group dynamic. Yeah, I just taught a performance class in the fall, and it's so delightful. We really get to know each other really well, and we learn to take risks, and we do all these kind of group participatory activities. And yeah, I miss that. I miss that.
And now that you're home with more forced studio time, because you work with video and photography, and so you're rendering your files and things, have you managed to spend some time catching up on work that you needed to catch up on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have not been doing that. Interestingly, I have been drawing. I have a studio on Governors. I actually have a studio at home, which I'm in right now. And I'm, again, very thankful to have that. I never had that before until 2 years ago. But I have a studio on Governors Island, and that got closed down. It's gorgeous and quiet and beautiful. And I had plans to shoot out there. And I've been in the studio since October. And I was finishing up for a show that opened in Brooklyn at 5 Miles Gallery, February 29th, and that nobody has seen after the opening because the world shut down here, at least. But my plan was, as soon as I finished that work, which was a video shot in the Arctic a few years ago, I was going to shoot on the island, and now I can't do that. So I have actually, last night I was making a list of all the kind of videos, kind of like side projects that I've shot over the years. There's even one I shot 10 years ago that I never did finish editing. So I will be doing that. And it's just kind of like getting to that point where like, okay, I can't do that new work. So what are you going to do? And it's just sort of like figuring that out and negotiating that with myself. But I've also been drawing, which is something I've done. I mean, you have the painting behind you. I'm not a painter. I don't claim to be a painter. I made a painting the other day, which is like, I don't know. I mean, you're just sort of like figuring out what you're going to do in this new world. And maybe it's an opportunity to take things in different directions.
Well, I know something else you did, which was to install some art in your home, which had been languishing in a closet.
That's right.
That's kind of a really optimistic and terrific project, a home project to have, to go, oh, I have got all this art piled up. I should hang it up.
Yeah, I can't tell you how happy that made me. I mean, this is artwork by friends and artwork, and this is actually added more to it since that photograph, and there's another wall now. But there's a work by you, John, on this wall. I noticed that you showed the version that doesn't doesn't show your.
Well, the photograph you have of mine, to be fair, I took the photograph, but you're the one that actually saw the subject of the photograph.
Well, maybe it's kind of a collaboration.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
I just happened to take the
about that.
photograph, but you really noticed it, so it's kind of your work in a way.
It's a great piece. I love it.
Well, as someone that I have limited space on my apartment walls for artwork, and I have a certain amount hanging up, but I've got just a big pile of stuff that there's no room for. So it sort of warmed my heart to see you filling up some walls with some art. And maybe my last question would be, when whatever version of normal returns, what's one of the first things you want to do that you can't do right now?
Oh,
large or small?
see everybody I know, have a big party, travel, get on an airplane and go somewhere beautiful. Not that New York's not beautiful. In fact, it's got the beautiful qualities it doesn't normally have. It's quiet, you hear the nature happening. I want to see my family. I want to go to Canada. The border's closed right now. I mean, I'm a Canadian citizen, but I have a daughter who doesn't have Canadian passport, so I'm not sure we can go there. I'd like to go to Canada. I don't know. There's so many things I want to do. Go out and eat food outside. Go to a park and just really enjoy it with friends.
All the simple things.
All the simple things, yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking some time today to chat with us. We're trying to keep these short and pithy. We just want to, check in with people we've worked with over the years here and there in different locations, and see how you're doing, see that you're well, and hear what's up with you. So thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you. It's great to see you too. I'm glad you're doing well.